Industrialization, Unit 10. What was the Industrial Revolution? An increase in the output of machine-made goods that began in England and spread to continental Europe and to North America. How did the Industrial Revolution begin? With an agricultural revolution. Wealthy landowners bought land from village farmers and enclosed it or fenced it in to protect it. They experimented with new growing methods that increased crop production and led to other innovations. These included the seed drill, which made planting more precise and effective, crop rotation so that the soil lasted longer and it yielded more productive harvests, and selective breeding so that the livestock were healthier. Small farmers were driven out of business by the enclosure movement because they either had to rent land from the wealthy landowners and become tenant farmers, or they had to quit farming and move to the cities to work. Draw a couple of picket fence posts in your notes next to this section to show that you're listening to the audio. Why was England the perfect place for the Industrial Revolution to begin? It had natural resources, including access to water and coal that it used to power new machines. It also had iron ore reserves so that machines, tools, and buildings could be created. It had inland rivers to use for transportation and good harbors for its merchant shipping fleet. So it had all of these natural resource elements that it needed. It also had economic factors, including that labor supply of displaced farmers who could go to work in factories, land on which to build those factories, businessmen with the wealth or capital to invest, a banking system that provided investment opportunities, and overseas colonies to provide resources and markets. In terms of the political factors, there was an absence of conflicts on British soil. All of the wars that Britain was involved with in the time period of the Industrial Revolution were fought on foreign soil. None of them were fought actually on the British Islands. In addition, the military successes that Great Britain experienced during this time built their national pride and confidence, and Parliament passed laws that encouraged and protected business investments. What technological advances were made in the textile industry? The textile industry, or the fabric making, was really the first one to take off in the Industrial Revolution. A flying shuttle was invented to increase weavers' production. That was followed by the invention of a spinning wheel or spinning jenny that's actually named after the inventor's daughter, that increased the thread production to keep up with the demand for thread caused by the flying shuttle. A water frame or water wheel was invented to help power the spinning jenny, and all of those inventions eventually led to the innovation of the power loom to improve the weaving process. The speed with which the weaving process increased led to increased demand for cotton. And so in 1793, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin that also increased the rate at which the cotton could be harvested. What technological advances were made in transportation? The steam engine was initially invented to remove water from coal mine shafts, but the invention of the steam engine led to the development of the steamboat, which enabled people to travel against the current on rivers. And once you had steamboats that could navigate up and down with the current or against the current, there also was the creation of canals or man-made waterways for use as an internal transportation network. Roadways were developed and covered with a crushed rock surface so that they wouldn't get so muddy, and people transporting things in wagons wouldn't get so bogged down, which led to the development of roads that were called turnpikes, which were so named because they had turnpikes or turnstiles where tolls were collected for use on those roads. The steam locomotive was also invented, which led to a revolution in the railway system. This was initially to move coal from the mines to the ports on the water. but it had greater impact than that. The development of the railway system gave cheap transportation to move large quantities of manufactured goods. It gave more jobs for miners and railroad workers. It increased the fishing and agricultural production because people who worked in those industries could move their products to market. And it enabled people to move to the cities to get jobs. Draw a fish next to this place in your notes so that you can prove that you're still listening to the video. What impact did urbanization have on people's lives? Or what impact did industrialization have on people's lives? Well, first of all, there was urbanization, or a movement to the cities. That resulted in increased job opportunities, but it also created overcrowded conditions in terms of housing and crime and poor sanitation in the cities. People literally just threw their garbage out into the streets. People went to work in factories where the working conditions were very poor. Generally, the expectation was that you'd work 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, in a space that was often poorly lit and poorly ventilated, with high rates of injuries due to the machines. This also led to the use of women and children as a cheap labor source because they didn't have to be paid as much as the men did. You saw, as a result of urbanization, the emergence of a middle class, and really an upper middle class, which included the merchants, the factory owners, and the shippers, who oftentimes made more money than the upper class. But the upper class still kind of looked down on the middle class because they had worked for their money instead of inheriting it, and that was considered vulgar. And then you see the emergence of a lower middle class as well. Those are the people who are the factory overseers and the skilled workers. And they had a fairly comfortable standard of living, especially compared to the working class. Finally, there was a group of people who emerged called the Luddites. They wanted to reverse the industrial advances. They were opposed to the technology. And so they broke into factories and destroyed the machines and started riots in opposition to the Industrial Revolution. What was the overall impact of industrialization? Well, the positives were that it increased wealth, jobs, technology innovations, production of manufactured goods, and people's standard of living. Over time, people developed healthier diets, better housing and clothing, and expanded educational opportunities. Go ahead and draw a smiley face in your notes next to where it says positives. However, on the negative side, all of these advances took years and years to reach the working class. There were thousands of people who lived in very dismal conditions as industrialization began. Industrialization also had an environmental impact. The use of coal increased the air pollution, and the use of textile dyes and waste increased water pollution. So draw a frowny face next to these results to remind you of the negative impact of industrialization. This is the conclusion of this video. If you need to rewind or rewatch any part of it, please feel free to do so. Thanks for listening.